Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk About Health. I'm your host, Madeline Mant, and today I'm very privileged to introduce our guest, Lucia Crespo, who is here to tell us all about her work as a speech pathologist. So welcome, Lucia.
Hi, Maddie.
Madeline. Or Madeline, we can be formal here. So let me know, what is a speech pathologist? What are you up to?
So, speech pathologist really deals with across the ages, so birth to death, essentially. And what we do is we treat communication disorders, as well as swallowing and feeding disorders, and any type of cognitive disorders. So anybody who needs rehab, from a stroke or like a brain injury or anything like that, then they would receive speech and language services to treat those cognitive deficits that are happening, those language deficits that are happening. Or if you're looking at younger babies or kids, we're looking at if they're meeting milestones that they should be reaching and how we can habilitate, not rehabilitation, but it's more habilitation. So building those skills so that they can function in everyday life and be able to learn and grow.
That's incredible. And I'm super interested in digging into this a bit more because when I think of speech pathology, I think of it through the lens of my family. And I had, my sister had some trouble with her THs, when she was really, really small. And so I remember her seeing a speech pathologist at the school who helped her with some of that. But then it sounds like it's so much more than that in terms of the spectrum of what you treat. So could you talk a little bit about maybe like from the THs to the swallowing disorders? That's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's a really big field. Starting with babies. So there are some speech pathologists that work with newborns, working on feeding and swallowing, making sure that they're getting enough nutrition and they're not, the liquids are not going into their airway. And just working on that, going through the development of chewing and swallowing and making sure that they're meeting those milestones so that they can be safe. And then once kind of speech and language comes into the mix, then we work on, are they understanding all of the language that we are giving them? Are they understanding directions, different concepts? And then are they able to express those things? Are they able to make grammatical sentences? Are they able to ask questions and express their emotions, know what those emotions mean too? And then we get into like the THs. So now that they have all this language and they're saying all these things, can they be easily understood? And if they're not, then, what are the sounds that they're missing? And we work on those and making sure that they can be understood better. And then we also work on like social communication. So, or pragmatics, if you want to call it that. But our kids or adults too, because adults can have social communication problems as well. Are they seeing all the social cues that are happening around them? Do they know how to participate in a group and pick up like body language and gestures from people and know how to make friends and keep friends and like all of those kinds of things. What else? Then you get into, this is actually my favorite. So for kids who don't, sorry, I'm a big nerd about this. So for kids who don't have language and they're not developing verbal language, like typical kids, then we introduce technology into the mix and teach them how to communicate using technology so that they can be functional communicators and that they can get their messages across to people. And then once you get into like the older populations, then we start looking more into rehab. So if somebody's had a stroke, then it might affect the language part of their brain. And so we may have to work on some of those things that are involved with that. Some of their cognition might be impaired as well. So things like executive function skills, like planning and organizing, those kinds of things, memory,
right.
And like attention skills as well. And then, if somebody's had a stroke or a brain injury, their swallowing can be very impacted with that as well. So we also delve into that kind of area. It's really big. Like there's a lot you can do.
We talk about, anthropology is an umbrella and it includes so many things, but now I'm like, oh, speech pathology is the grandest umbrella maybe we've encountered so far in terms of all the different areas you could be working in. Now, you were talking a little bit there about, habilitation versus rehabilitation. And this whole field, of course, is about language and communication. So I wanted to ask you, how do you use terms or think about terms like health and illness and wellness and sickness and that sort of thing in your work?
Yeah, so I think for us, it's more about quality of life. So if there is something that's happening with their physiology or anatomy that's impacting their quality of life in terms of being able to communicate with other people, being able to advocate for themselves. So if the communication or cognitive communication deficits are really impacting that, then that's what we work on, and we try to target those health areas.
Absolutely. Now, this sounds like outrageously rewarding. It sounds like it must be something where the day-to-day is really rewarding. And so I'm sure as folks are listening to this video, they're going like, oh, this is what I want to do. So how might somebody become a speech pathologist? What was your journey getting here?
Yeah, so I did an undergrad at McMaster University in cognitive science and language, and then I did a 2 years master's degree in speech language pathology. So you have to have a master's degree in order to be a speech language pathologist. Sometimes I did a 1 year postgrad in between my undergrad and my master's in communicative disorders assistant, and they are speech language pathology assistants and audiology assistants as well. But they really learn kind of more the treatment skills and clinical skills to kind of deliver the treatment plan from a speech pathologist or audiologist. And I think that really helped me learn the clinical skills on treatment. And it was really helpful when I went to do my master's. I kind of already had like a good baseline.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Lucia, we've taken up a lot of your time already today. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. And thank you also to you, our audience, for joining us as well. And we will both see you next time on Let's Talk About Health.